Welcome into a brand new edition of Bleav and Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Desmond, Johnson, Schuyler, Callihan, Jonathan, Stewart in the house. Loaded show for you today. The Panthers fall 28-14 this past Sunday to the Denver Broncos. We've got some video from head coach Dave Canales talking about Bryce Young. I'm sure you guys are going to want to talk about Bryce Young. Trade talk potentially surrounding this team regarding some of the skill position players on offense. We're going to go around the league. If you didn't see that Washington-Chicago game into that, we'll show you that and what went wrong. We're keeping it real goes wrong for that number 29 on Chicago. And Justin Herbert and Gator rolls. We'll get into all that and more. It's an open mailbag, of course, here on Bleav in Panthers. If you got anything you want to comment on, anything you want to discuss, you can do it with us here. And much more. So if you're watching this on Twitter, if you're watching this on Instagram, if you're watching this on Facebook Watch, YouTube, wherever you may be catching this right now, definitely share out the stream. Let's go ahead and start. Let's Bleav in Panthers. Let's go.
Jonathan Stewart gets in, fights for more yardage. Stewart to the mouth of the goal line. Touchdown!
Wow, that's just pure Stewart right there.
That's a big-time run by Jonathan Stewart.
Welcome to Bleav in Carolina Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Do you believe? Rate and subscribe the show on all major podcast platforms and subscribe to our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Video available weekly at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Do you believe?
And again, it's a live edition of Bleav in Carolina Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Desmond Johnson, Panthers Sports Illustrated beat writer Schuyler Callihan, and Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart in the house. Starting out with this Panthers 28-14 loss to the Denver Broncos and a familiar foe in Sean Payton. The final score was a bit closer than what that game actually was. It was pretty much Broncos the entire day. I'm gonna. Before I turn it over to my guys here, let me get the read in for Bet Online and then just get your opinions on. I want to get your opinions on Bryce Young specifically going forward because Dave Canales is pretty non-committal in terms of who was starting this upcoming Sunday, whether Andy Dalton will be able to start or whether Bryce Young will be starting instead. We'll get into that conversation here in just a bit. Before we do, the word from our sponsors over at Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, Major League Baseball playoffs, NHL, NBA to political props. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or on one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. That's Bet Online. The game starts here. And where we start today is our analysis of the Panthers' 28-14 loss here to the Denver Broncos. Stu, I'll let you kick things off here. What were your thoughts on the Panthers as a whole and Bryce Young's play?
Man, man, listen, it's bad. You know, it's just there's no sugarcoating here. If you've been watching the Carolina Panthers for the last several years, we're just in a hole right now. We're in a hole in the depth chart, injuries, and just guys not getting it done, right? And when you see the results of a game like that, 28-14, there's no sugarcoating it at this point, and you just have to deal with what you got and just try to get better. And obviously, I think for the offensive side of the ball, it just looked like things were just out of sync. Right, it wasn't as fine-tuned. It was a little bit slow on the pace of getting to the line of scrimmage, getting out of the huddle. Just a lot of the little things, that you saw from Andy Dalton being in there. There's just things that just work smoother. Maybe that's his veteran presence, his understanding of how things are supposed to go at this level. But you just see a difference, but there were some bright spots on offense. Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker.
Yeah, he played great too.
These two guys are something that we should absolutely be excited about for the future for the Panthers. Coker is a diamond in the rough, and I'm so happy that he's playing well. This is what football is all about, is seeing guys like that shine through the shade. You know, and then having Xavier Leggett starting to bloom in this situation that the Panthers are in is a bright spot. We found one in the draft, and that's a good thing from upper management. The defensive side of the ball, I felt like we made some plays, but it's just one of those things where obviously we're still missing key components to a good defense with guys being injured. I loved Ashawn Robinson, 2 sacks. Tuttle got in there in the beginning of the game, causing a forced turnover. Those are things that you want to see out of a team, especially coming out of the gate on an away game in an environment that doesn't necessarily, scream easy conditions. I mean, you're playing at a high elevation. It's harder to breathe. Everything's different up there. I remember the first time I played in Denver was a year after the Super Bowl. And I'm going to tell you the conditions that people don't really realize. If you're not used to playing in Denver, imagine putting your helmet on throughout a whole entire season, throughout your whole entire career. And then you end up going to Denver and your helmet is hard to put on because it's just too tight. This is where the quality of the helmet, the air, the flexibility of things, all those types of things matter when you're in a higher elevation. I remember putting my helmet on. I was like, "Ooh, this thing too hot. This thing is too tight. Does my head get bigger?" I'm asking other teammates, like, "Hey, like, Toad, is your helmet hurting your head? Like, what's going on here?" He's like, "Yeah, bro. Like, that's what it's like up here." I'm like, "Oh man." But so there's just different elements that you don't take in consideration when you're playing teams like this. But you add that into the mix. It's again, you're up a creek without a paddle if you're the Carolina Panthers. And I feel like we had a pretty strong, showing out the gate for the most part, as far as what we've been seeing, just not being able to sustain it. Guys, the game, it's easier to go into a game and to deliver your game plan, right? Your first, several plays, your first call sheets for the first 2 drives. You can go out there and execute those. But what happens is when you have to start making adjustments and basically, this defense playing this front, they're playing this coverage. What are we going to be able to do now, right? Is your quarterback, is your team capable of making those adjustments along the way? Because what we saw is we came out, throwing those short to intermediate throws and, finding space and creating some ground and gaining ground. But what we saw as the game continued is the short passes, nothing but short passes, dump offs. And, Bryce, at the end of the game got most of his yards when they were playing, backup coverage, right? It's like,
he had 143 yards at the 2-minute mark of the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And so that's what's alarming to me, is not being able to operate throughout a game early on, being able to pick guys apart in coverage with capable receivers. Like Xavier Leggett's capable. Coker's capable. You have running backs out of the backfield that can catch and run too. And I think you want to be able to see more out of that. And give Denver credit. They're a good defense. And I think we should also put that into perspective. They are well coached. They play really well, good defense, and that's expected out of a Sean Payton led, team. So I know I said a lot there, but if I had to put it into a sentence, it is what it is. It ain't what it ain't.
It's a little both.
Yeah, it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't.
Schuyler, I'll let you go before I hop in there. Your thoughts on this this game? Stu hit a couple of points I want to go back to in a bit, but what?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Stu said. I saw a lot of folks on Twitter and Facebook that were, talking about how they want to see Bryce the rest of the year, and at some point, yes, but to me, I'm still riding with Andy Dalton at this point because Bryce just did not look impressive to me. I mean, for 95% of the game, it was just bad football. And it was a lot of east-west in the passing game, a lot of things underneath, behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know the exact number, but it felt like a lot of passes were either at or maybe within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And you just can't have that. You have to have, in the NFL, you can get away with it in college because of guys' speed and their ability to make plays. But in the NFL, you have to have an element of a vertical passing game. And you just don't have that right now with Bryce Young, whether that's him not being able to or the coach is not allowing him to give that or take those shots. I really don't know. But there are several calls that I noticed on third down, fourth down, not just in this game, but the first 2 games he played too, where most of the guys running routes are not even reaching the sticks.
Yes.
It's a lot of underneath and hoping that they can slip free and make a play. You have to throw the ball beyond the sticks. And I understand that you maybe have a little bit of a confidence issue with Bryce, but you still have to do it. You still have to at least try. If you're not even running to the sticks, you're putting a lot on that receiver to make a play for you. So if you don't have the trust in him to throw it to the sticks or beyond the sticks, what's it tell you about their confidence in Bryce Young?
Right.
So I'm not thrilled with Bryce. The end of the day numbers looked much better than what they were, like Stu mentioned, but it's just not it. It's not it at all. So there's a lot of issues, but it starts with finding that balance of being able to trust Bryce enough to let him throw it versus not putting your offense in a tough spot.
Okay, both you guys said a lot of good stuff in there. I think Sunday was the day I jumped off the Bryce Young bandwagon, like for good. Like I feel like I've seen enough of it. That was 19 starts now.
He made like 2 throws in that entire game. Like I don't know why some folks are like
he won't throw it downfield.
Go back to Bryce. What?
I don't even think the plays are that much different than when Andy's in there. I think Andy's just taking chances downfield, like the way the play's designed, and Bryce is Bryce has thrown it within like 2 seconds of hiking the ball, like which tells me, like watching it from afar, like on my couch, he wasn't going through reads in the first place. He was gonna hit the first guy, like, and it was a lot of plays like that where it was just like hike, boom. As soon as he gets the ball in his hands, he's throwing it to the first guy, regardless of what's going on. And I'm like, he's not even let the play develop or whatever's going on. To me, that's a Bryce decision. Like Bryce is deciding to go there first and hoping that guy can get yak or whatever. But to Schuyler's point, there was so many times it'd be like 3rd and 9 or something like that, and they're throwing like a 3-yard out, or they're doing that weird wishbone thing they did behind the line of scrimmage where it's like Bryce ain't fast enough.
Down play call.
Oh, which one? They did a couple of 4th down.
Craziness. It looked like an RPO option at midfield.
Oh, they took off running to the left, and all of a sudden he just kind of threw it to the running back that's like 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And we're like, sometimes it's just meat and potatoes. Just line up. It's 4th and 2. Line up, run the ball, get behind Robert Hunt, and run that ball for 2 yards. Like hand it to Chuba Hubbard. Like I wouldn't even go pull up the box score because I think the box score is kind of deceiving. Because when you look at the box score and you see Chuba's, or not Chuba's numbers, but when you see Bryce's numbers, you're like, oh, looks like he had a decent day. No, he didn't. He was down 21 points for most of the day. The offense couldn't do anything. They forgot about Chuba Hubbard again. Now, granted, they were playing Denver, and Denver has a top 5 defense, so they had a lot to say about Chuba's numbers yesterday. So that I understand that. But there was some opportunity out there to do some stuff, and Bryce just didn't take it. And between that and it's some of the stuff lately that he says to the media that just doesn't inspire confidence, like in me, like that he wants this. You know what I mean? Like it feels like it's something has happened where when he first got here, he seemed like that super kind of California laid back, cool, confident. You know what I mean? Like he was very aware of his abilities and who he is and everything else. He is lost, like right now. Like when he gets asked questions about stuff, he doesn't even know what to say. And
I
It's
don't
a
want to
warning.
speak. I don't want to speak for him, but I can make an assumption, and we all can. When you see him after a throw or he's on the sidelines, you can tell he's lacking confidence.
Mhm.
And you can see it in the play. He's hesitant on his throws. He doesn't have conviction in his throws. Like we said with Andy Dalton, first game right away against Vegas, you could just see, boom, I'm throwing the ball here, and I have confidence that my guy's going to make the play. Bryce is like
yeah.
a little
I will-
hesitant,
I-
and you
I
just
will
can't
s-
have that.
I will say that first drive was it like 12 plays. It was like a 12-play drive, right?
Mhm.
That was a well executed oil machine.
See, in that, but
And
we
coming
do
out
that.
of that, I was like, okay, this is
The scary parts, that's the
this
script.
is good, huh?
I said the scary parts is that's the scripted stuff.
Right. Once you get past
That's
that
what
first few
that's what
plays,
I was talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Once you get past the scripted things, the things that you basically go to bed at night thinking about because you've been talking about it throughout the week, and Saturday night, pregame meal happens. You have your clap session with the team where you're going through plays mentally, and you're already having these things going through your mind for the beginning of the game, right? The scripted stuff. If you can figure out a way to have that in your mind every time you go under center, every time, I'm talking about second quarter, the game's on the line, and you're executing the playbook just like that in that first drive that they had, you're now taking your team and putting them in situations to win games. And people can get behind that. People can feel led by that. You know what I'm saying? And have confidence in that. And so, I mean, there's one throw was the decision to check it down to Chubbard or to Chuba, right? Was that screen?
It was supposed to be, I think. Like he was doing it all day. So
But whatever that, like, just a mixture. It was a mixture of things where, okay, I'm throwing it to Coker. We're running the ball. Okay, we're giving it back to our playmaker, Chuba Hubbard in space. All right, Xavier, in the slot, like across the middle for a touchdown. Like things like that where that's football. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like the cute like things to just like get by and the comfort zone type things, right? You got to get out of your box. That's what I'm trying to say. You got to get out of your box in order to play football, because if you're in a box, you might as well just go back to elementary school, right? You might as well go sit in that sandbox.
Bryce doesn't step up in the pocket. And I mentioned this last year, and he's still not doing it really this year. So when he's not stepping up into his throws, which probably gives him a lack of confidence in his deep throws, which probably tells him I should just throw it to the first guy right here anyway, and just let them go. And I'm good getting 3 yards, 4 yards, and let's just see what happens. But it's a repeat. And I put on X yesterday or day before about, we've seen the same game for Bryce for 19 games, really, because the thing that keeps throwing up to me from fans is that, well, he did have that good game versus Green Bay last year. And I went back into the ESPN box score and actually went through the play-by-play and just read like what actually happened. Because I think if you look at the box score, you're like, oh, no interceptions. He didn't get sacked. He had 300 yards. They lost the game off of a field goal at the end or whatever, but Bryce played pretty well. I went back in there and looked at that. It was all short passes. Like he had 2 long passes to DJ Chark that day, one for 19 yards and one for 20 yards. That was it. Everything else was underneath screen passes. It'd be like a little pass for 5 yards here, 4 yards there. And they just they put together 2 competent drives in the second half to got the game tied. And then Green Bay went down and kicked the field goal, and that was the game. But that was also against a banged up Green Bay secondary too. And point being, we have seen the exact same game from Bryce Young for every game he has played, basically. Think about how you feel when you've watched Bryce Young play in a Carolina Panthers uniform. It's the same. You almost know the offense at this point from watching what he's going to do. He's going to go for the first read. He's not going to go beyond 7 yards. More than likely, it's going to be behind the line of scrimmage when he throws it, or at the line of scrimmage one. If he does sling one in there, God bless him. He had a couple. He had a couple where it could have went either way. And this Sunday it went Panthers' way, where he threw a couple down the field and they were caught. I was like, okay, but I shouldn't be having to do that for the number 1 overall pick that we traded up for. That's my point. Like, I shouldn't be having to have someone hold Bryce Young's hand, and we shouldn't be giving him grace. Like, well, he didn't turn the ball over, so he had a good game. Like, No, I need a Joe Burrow, Cam Newton, like number 1 overall pick type.
Well, even
those are hard to come by. Those are hard to come by.
But
I think that's
he feels like a
that's the
quarterback. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't feel like the number 1 overall pick. He feels like he is a backup quarterback in this league, and I don't know how to fix that at all.
I think that's the problem, right? He was drafted number 1, right, and we put him in there last year as number 1, right? There's a good argument to say maybe we don't put him out there as number 1 right now, right? We give him some time to like develop and get his confidence under his belt. But guess what? It didn't happen, right? One thing we're not going to do is just act like every number 1 draft pick at quarterback
works
or is going to be a Cam Newton or a Joe Burrow or who have you, right? Or Jaden Daniels. We're not going to just think to ourselves, oh, you were drafted here. Our expectations is that you are going to be a Jaden Daniels this year.
At least
those only come by once in those only come by once in a lifetime, and once in a lifetime measure once a year. Okay, well, maybe once every 2 years.
Here's the problem, though. The Panthers thought he was that. That's why they gave up so much to go get him in the first place. Because there was other quarterbacks that got at 9, so they sold that to us. So now it's like, okay, he's not that. So now what do we do? And I don't know if they'll trade Bryce this year or not or whatever, but I don't think Bryce is going to be in their long-term plans, basically, because Dave can actually. This is my right here. Let me pull him up real quick because Dave is very good about not really dumping on a player, but you can kind of tell when Dave doesn't really care about a player. I feel like he doesn't really care about Bryce right now.
Nah, I feel like he cares. He definitely cares about Bryce. Let's not say that he doesn't. He's a guy that cares about.
He totally cares. That's not what I meant. I meant more like he doesn't feel like Bryce is attached to him when it comes to his job security, like anymore. Like he's going to figure this out whether Bryce is there or not. This is him talking about here. David Newton.
If Andy is healed and ready to go, you look at him as the guy that you'll go back to because. I mean, does he still feel like he's the guy that gives you the best chance to win?
Again, yeah, that's what these next couple of days are about, to see where he's at and to evaluate that based on the information we have about Bryce being back out there on the field, and then what Andy would give us in what capacity. So we really got to just look at that and feel really confident about it.
And what when you went back and looked at the film, what stood out for Bryce yesterday that maybe you missed during the game?
Yeah, just his ability to just get back out there and just continue to compete. He found some great completions throughout the game. I thought that, there was some, the chemistry, finding Xavier, finding Jalen a couple of times, finding Demo. So there were some things that I was really encouraged by. And again, I think, he took steps in that regard. And I think that, the whole process, the pre-snap operation is the focus and the intent for us improvement wise.
Here, he kind of skipped through that question a little bit where it was like,
yeah, listen, this is what you call, I wasn't at the wedding. You know what I'm saying? Like, Panther fans and everybody got married to the draft pick, but Dave wasn't at the wedding, bro. So
not invited.
Listen, he's here to win. Listen, he's here to evaluate, and he's here to win football games, and that's the reason why we like Dave Canelli. All right, right now, the things that are in the irons that are in the fire. We trying to, we taking them out and seeing if they hot enough yet. Nah, not hot yet, right? It's still cold. And so he's basically, fine tuning the things that he has in that locker room. He's not married. Okay,
he don't like Bryce Young. He does not care for Bryce Young as a player.
And I'm not gonna say he doesn't like Bryce Young. I think because to me, you don't ever give up on a player because you never know what that player is going to be able to accomplish at some point in life, aka Donald, right? Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold was a case in point where people wrote Sam Darnold off into the sunset. Bye. Don't want nothing to do with you.
He was a number 2 overall pick.
He's a Minnesota Viking and winning games. And lost the game the other night because referees blind to a face mask. Okay, blatantly.
Yeah, that was horrible.
All right,
that was really bad.
So I mean, you don't ever, as a fan, as a coach, you don't ever just write people off, especially when Bryce is a good dude. He's played good football. We've seen him play good football. So don't just say, the hell with him. But just call it what it is. You have a new regime that wasn't at the wedding. And that's exactly the recipe to start building a winning culture and a winning environment.
You know what I really want
before too. Before the Brian Burns thing, he's like, the good thing is I'm not emotionally attached to some of these guys because
I'm coming in.
I'm brand new here. And
Yeah.
you didn't have that pre-established relationship. Now, obviously, he's established that relationship before, or in the last few months, but still, it still kind of applies here. He came in after Bryce was drafted, and I'll say this because I got to hop off, but the whole Bryce Young trade him not situation. If it's me, I'm trading him because
this year.
Why not? Because I think we all kind of know how this is going to end. Now, maybe I'm completely wrong, and we can come back and laugh at this, a couple years from now. But Bryce needs a new opportunity. It's been 2 coaching staffs here, technically, a third if you really want to bring in Tabor, but I don't really count that as one. But still, it's been 2 different coaching staffs, 2 different offenses. It's just not worked out here, and that's not to say that he's done it over with as an NFL quarterback. It just may be that he needs a new, organization to go to, fresh start somewhere else, where he's just that opportunity to turn the page and say, you know what, this is not the same thing. Even though this is a different coaching staff, I'm in a different place. I have different people around me. This is a new opportunity to start. And for Carolina, you just kind of have to understand where you are and cut ties while you can. And start that process of trying to figure out who's going to be that next guy. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I would honestly kind of be surprised if they moved on from him before the deadline. You just don't normally see a lot of quarterbacks being traded. Really, trades just kind of got popular in the NFL in the last couple of years.
That's true. Yeah, usually it doesn't happen in the middle of the season like that. And I'm thinking, it's like, who could use him? Maybe a Miami, maybe with their situation there.
Regardless of where he's going to go, he's going to be a backup the rest of this season. I mean, and I doubt he would even play this season because he's going to have to learn that system, learn that offense. So it's going to be essentially a red shirt back half of the season for him. So,
and I said Miami, and Miami's 2-5, if I'm not mistaken. They're kind of on the outside looking in, and Tua's about to go back out there Sunday, and I know he looks up to Tua Tagovailoa, but you're right.
Rams maybe would be an opportunity.
The Rams might be a spot. I feel like they're only giving him. They only gave him the opportunity. They only gave him the start Saturday or Sunday because they didn't have a choice, and that's kind of telling right there. Where they didn't want to play Bryce Young, but Andy couldn't go, and they couldn't start the third string guy who was on the practice squad, so they had to play Bryce. And to me, that's telling that he is not really part of their long-term plans. And I feel like they in terms of this a long time ago before a lot of us did, because there's still a lot of people like let him play all season. Yada, yada, yada. And he might end up playing multiple games here, but I don't think it's going to change anything's going on. And for those that are complaining about, well, we gave up so much to go get him, that's just the cost of doing business at this point. You're gonna have to eat that, and many teams have, like Stu said, there's been plenty of times where teams have reached out for that number 1 pick and it didn't work out. And right now, I'm at a point where the regime, we've had multiple regimes come in here since David Tepper bought the team in 2018. And never once have they stripped this house down to the studs. They've never just completely stripped this thing down and rebuilt it back up. They've kind of built on top of whatever was already there. And then each year we're like, they added some stuff on defense. You had a receiver here. You do this, do that, plug a hole. They're just plugging the dam, but they're not rebuilding the dam. And I'm at a point where just rebuild it. I mean, you're already here already.
Rebuild the damn dam.
Nobody's coming to save us.
Rebuild it.
Rebuild the whole thing. Stop.
I think the biggest
holes in the dam and hoping that's going to fix the dam, because that's what we do every offseason. And then we have stuff like this. And what is this, week 8? Week 9? So we're halfway through the year and we're already I don't think this is getting any better. Actually, the tough part of our schedule is coming up. Remember, the tough part comes after the bye. So the Saints just 37. We'll play them on Sunday.
This is my thought.
The whole Bryce Young thing is, it goes to.
I was just going to say, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't trade him
this year, or just in general. Just hold on to him and see what you can do with him.
I would just hold on to him as an experiment, because if he's not your first choice this year, right? Then what is there to say about him being able to develop at some point still? And I know what you're saying, like maybe a new environment, maybe a new team will help him. But what if he does develop? You don't want to see him go off and be Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, the guys that flourished, down the road because they just found some belief in themselves, right? They were able to sit around and be around other coaching staffs and be around other pros and different quarterbacks and different quarterback rooms, right? Those guys were able to learn and grow and even find their own hunger, right? Because you're not going to sit there and tell me Baker Mayfield, being a guy that, coming out from college, being the guy in Cleveland, and then slowly things just kind of start going out of his favor. And then now he's in this backup role. Now he's trying to find a job. Those things have eaten at him so much to where he's found and basically was reborn, right? Through the struggle, right? There's beauty in the struggle. And my prayer and my hope for Bryce is that he is able to find beauty within his struggles. And I believe that he will. And I don't want to be a Carolina Panther fan looking at him one day finding that beauty and then not be with the Carolina Panthers. That is the perfect scenario for me. Yeah. That's the perfect scenario for me, that we are a part of that. And I can totally understand, and I would agree if that decision were to be otherwise, right? Where we sought after him in the market, as far as letting somebody else have him. But the perfect scenario would be, nah, man, let's just go through this struggle with him. but in a way that you have an Andy Dalton in his presence. You have some guys that he's capable of continuing to learn and develop.
The question I have, though, say they do trade him or whatever, like, and Damo Smith says, fact says we got to hold this L on Bryce, shake my head like the 49ers did with Trey Lance. Remember, they traded up to like number 3 or whatever to get him. He never even played really for them. I think he's in Dallas right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's in Dallas. And maybe and if that's the case, so be it. But just hope and pray that he just continues to just be like Trey Lance, because he ain't heard nothing from him.
No.
But we don't want him to turn into a Sam Darnold and a Baker Mayfield, and we sitting here holding our thumbs. Like,
here's my question to you, though, because I know you're doing a lot of college stuff now, especially with Bleav, with the Oregon show that you guys are doing. At this point, the organization is done with Bryce. Do we draft a quarterback with the number 1 pick this year? Because you're talking like Shedeur Sanders or Youre to Texas.
Unless you have a plan to get the depth in order across the whole entire board, defense is, I think, number 1 priority this offseason.
I'd want Travis Hunter. If we're going to seriously talk about this halfway through the year, I'd take Travis Hunter number 1 if the Panthers have the number 1 pick. I ain't trading it. Yeah, I'm getting Travis Hunter.
Take the best player. Because what we found, I think what we're finding is, again, what I said earlier, it's hard to go and find a Jaden Daniels. Like last year, we had Schuyler Callihan convince us that Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback in this draft.
He did.
And 2 years ago,
CJ Stroud, he said.
CJ Stroud 2 years ago. And like, lo and behold, these things come to fruition. And it's hard to get that right. It's hard to get it right. It's humanly impossible to think to yourself, oh, this is 100% the right choice.
I will push back
another guy.
I will push back on one thing that the fans are doing right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
That sounds a little off. The whole thing about Tepper meddling or whatever, and that's why we're where we are now. I don't really catch a vibe that David Tepper is really in the day-to-day of anything like he was in the previous.
Y'all gotta get off that. Y'all gotta get off that narrative, man.
It's too easy. It's too easy to just blame the billionaire owner when he literally told us what they were going to do, and we're watching it now, but we're watching it in chapter 1. That's the problem. Everybody wants to be chapter 10. It's like maybe Dan Morgan and Dave Canales do report to him every Monday or Tuesday. I'm sure a lot of coaches report to the owners at the beginning of the week. Like,
and if I was an owner of anything, I'm getting a report.
I want to know
I'm
what's
going to
happening.
have something to say.
Why did this happen Sunday? Like, I mean, you don't have to come in there like it's a book report or whatever, but I want to at least know, if I'm the owner, what's going on. I'm not going to be like an absent owner. And that sounds like what people are wanting him to be, like an absent owner, like just not there at all.
That's one thing you don't want.
No,
right?
That's when you get like a Brown situation.
And shout out to the Teppers, David and Nicole, by the way, for opening up Bank of America Stadium this past weekend with Luke Combs and all the other country artists that came in and showed out, and all the fans of those country artists understanding, the mission, understanding, what was at stake here. $24 million, over $24 million was raised on Saturday night for the Western Carolinas. And that's a huge, huge win, not just for the Tepper or like it was a huge win for the Carolinas.
And they didn't have to do it. They didn't have to do it, but they
didn't have to do that. Like, and that goes to show you like the investment that the Teppers are trying to make here. They want to win. They want winning culture. They want things to be good and be in good standing. It's hard to just go into anything and just be great at it.
Yeah,
you gotta learn. And it just so happens the learning curve had COVID a part of it.
We never talked about that.
All these things a part of like the transition for a new owner in an environment that was once used to, the dabs, the touchdown celebrations, the old ways of a regime, but you got wiped away by a head coach. You know what I'm saying? And Matt Rule. And then, you're trying to revamp a lot of things. And try to make things right. And it's hard, especially when certain things just don't go as you plan. But I'll tell you this, that concert, that benefit, shout out to them, the Teppers, at Bank of America Stadium, everybody involved.
Luke Combs,
it was extremely well executed. And they did it in 3 weeks, man. 3 weeks. Got all those country artists coming in to play for free. I mean, these fans had, I don't know too much about country music. I know Luke Combs. I know Corey. Yeah. I know Chris Lane. I know a couple guys.
Hometown. He's from here. Yeah.
So you know more than me.
For all the folks that were up there, people were cheering their behind off. It was a moment where people were coming together. It was beautiful. The energy was amazing. And at the end of the day, if you are a Carolina Panther fan, you live in the Carolinas, you know someone that lives in the Carolinas, you love visiting the Carolinas, that was a statement. And I think people should hold on to stuff like that, especially during this time, because at the end of the day, it's just a game. What happened on Saturday night was bigger than football. And if you can't wrap your mind around that and get behind an owner that understands that, it's bigger than football. Like, yes, that is a big driver for a city as far as revenue and as far as how people respond when they go to work on Monday morning, because people are loyal to they're loyal to their team, right? And they want to feel good. Football, entertainment, sports, all those things make people feel good. But Saturday night, a lot of people felt good because a really good thing happened. So shout out to them, for making that happen. And hopefully, that's just a spark of the beginnings of what's actually expected and what's needed for those folks in Western Carolina.
Yeah, everything down to was donated, so it was great.
I hope too that this is maybe the start of gaining some of the trust back from the fans for Tepper too, because I mean, whether you like them, hate them, love them, or indifferent, like, this is your owner. Like, he's not he's not leaving. You can't fire him.
You can't make a petition, make him sell the team or whatever. Like, that doesn't work that way.
The guy. And I think that you can be as mad as you want to be about the product on the field. You can be, upset with all the decisions that have been made over the last few years. But when you can do something like this, it shows the human element to this, And that when you talk about just David Tepper, the person, he's got a great heart. I mean, he's coming from a great place and be able to do something like this. Most owners wouldn't do that. Most owners would have tried to find a way to put a few bucks in their pocket, but to be able to do that, that's truly special. So that might be, and I'm not just saying this because there probably may not be very many wins on the field this year, but that will be the signature win of the season.
Yeah, so, that's a signature win. That might be a signature win for his career of being an owner of a football team. Like as a philanthropy. Yeah, so the philanthropy that they do goes a lot of it goes unnoticed, by the way. This just so happens to be one of the things that people know about because they gifted a whole entire stadium, for a cause. So
and they didn't put it out there that this is what we're doing, blah blah blah. Like we wouldn't even known unless I was going to go pull that clip of Luke Combs actually talking about all this. But when Luke said it during the concert, that was the first time I even knew that the Teppers that even did all this behind the scenes. So I'm glad he got a chance to say that and actually let everybody know like how that actually went about. And shout out to everybody in Western North Carolina still dealing with the tragedy from Hurricane Helene. They're still kind of digging out from it.
Always thinking about you guys.
Matt's and Adams says Tepper shows he has a body
especially this time of the year.
Yeah, especially going into the holidays. Yeah, especially
holidays.
Snow's going to be coming. That could be really, really scary for them up there.
Yeah, so that I want to flip it over real quick to around the league before we get out of here because we had a couple things that happened during the the weekend that we wanted to touch on. I went and pulled the Chicago-Washington Hail Mary, and I went and pulled the angle of whoever shot it from the end zone where you can actually see number 29. So if you haven't seen this yet, of course, we come on Tuesdays, so we give everybody a chance to get their stuff out before we come on. But number 29 for Chicago is literally taunting the Washington Commander fans with his back turned to the screen or to the team until he realizes the play is going on. And if you'll just watch real quick because you'll see my man ends up being responsible for what happened. So let's you ain't even looking, plays going on. They're running downfield. Now
don't look behind you, boy. And then
there goes Daniels. There goes that dude. He's scrambling. He
just still like, what are you doing? Your awareness is way off because you worried about the other thing. You should have been all. You should have been over there. You should have been over there already. You should have been over there already.
I did not notice that happened until like later that night when someone put it on Twitter or whatever it was. Because I don't think unless I missed it, I don't think the broadcast even said anything about it.
I don't think they saw it either because it's from that angle. When you see it from that angle, we can clearly see because it's not just him tipping it. It's him not even knowing the play's going on at first. That's kind of the thing where you're like, oh, my man is like talking to the crowd. And there's like receivers running at him.
The wrong thing, fella. In the words of Steve Smith, worry about your own grilled cheese, fella. He worried about the wrong thing right there, fella. He worried about talking all this smack and worried about, what people got on their grilled cheese. Meanwhile, his grilled cheese is over there in the air, falling into the hands of a group of individuals where he's not. He could have been there and influenced that play way better if he was worried about his own grilled cheese.
You know what that reminded me of? And I can't remember who it was. I think it was in the NBA where they were trying to dribble out the clock, thought that the game was over, they were going to win. Actually, it may have been college. And it must have been a big one or whatever. The guy just throws the ball up in the air as if, game's over, they're going to win. Well, the ball came back down and into a player's hands, and he shot it like half or 3/4 of the court and made the shot to win the game. That's what it reminded me of.
Oh my God.
I can't remember who it is, but
that's when you call showboating gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Showboating and there's a hole in the boat.
And what happens? Because Chicago's in probably the best division in football, right? The NFC North, every team's above 500. What if you miss the playoffs by a game, at the end of the year, and you got to go back?
That's going to happen, especially up there in the North.
Yep.
Right?
Because, literally right now, all 4 teams are above 500. Plus, he did the one thing. I don't even play football, and I know on a Hail Mary, bat the ball down. Bat it down. You bat it down. And he tapped it up, like into the air to just the weight and arms of the wide receiver that was just sitting there by himself in the end zone. So that was the one thing.
It down or go and make sure the guy that's behind the group of individuals doesn't get it.
Yeah,
How
the
about
trailer.
that?
Yeah. Just I don't know.
They had a guy in the front. They always have a guy in the front for support for if the ball gets knocked in the front, and they have a guy in the back. And to credit to the Commanders, they executed that perfectly. They did a great job.
When Jaden was running around as much as he was, I knew as long as he got it close to the end zone, there was going to be a really good chance.
Yeah,
Because
Daniels is legit for real.
I don't know why they didn't rush.
They rushed 3.
They only win 3.
I mean, really,
and truly do that. I don't understand.
This is what they should have done. They should have took 29s behind out of the game if he was going to be doing all that, and then they should have just brought in another rusher.
Yeah,
because they should have had him up there. Like, hey, look, you one of them guys is going to be showboating. We're gonna make sure we rush you off the edge.
He didn't even know they were going to run a play. Like, I mean, he thought the game was already over. So
it happened last year to West Virginia at the end of the game against Houston. They only brought 3 too. So maybe we should just stop bringing 3 on Hail Mary attempts, because you got to bring a little bit of pressure. If you just have all day to stand back there and throw, then you're giving them way too good of a chance.
Teams that go into prevent, like whenever that situation comes up, drives me nuts. Like, why are you changing your defense when you know they've got to get down the field 80 or whatever it is, and you're playing prevent and you're sticking like 9 guys back here trying to play, tag football in the back, like trying to guard all these players. It's keep doing what you're doing. Keep applying the pressure. That's what makes it hard. When you give them time to do that Aaron Rodgers thing where you can just kind of sit back there and just throw it. Well, not current Aaron Rodgers. That's a whole story.
I hate the whole, like, you got to stick a receiver back there. I'm not a huge, proponent of that, because they're not there to catch the ball. You need guys back there. Now, it would help, but you need guys back there that just get a hand on the ball to get it down. Now, if you want to put somebody back there that's like a 6'7" tight end, sure.
Gronk.
But I'm not sticking a 5'11" receiver back there just because he can catch.
Yeah, Patsy do with Gronk all the time. The other thing I was going to show is the Saints, and that brings us up because we were about to play the Saints on Sunday at 1:00 kickoff on Fox. I Bleav they're 8-point favorite going into this. They beat us by like 37 week 1 or whatever. But that's not the same Saints team that we saw beginning of the year. They were playing the Chargers, and Stu brought this up, and I saw it too. But Stu brought it up in our group chat. But this Saints D lineman pretty much tried to Gator roll Justin Herbert. And I'm just going to pull it up here for you guys to see. Matter of fact, let me make it a little bit bigger. This is from ML Football.
Shout out to Bradley Bozeman.
Yeah.
Boy,
Bradley Bozeman jumped in there.
Who was it?
Look, if you ain't got offensive linemen like that.
Who is that? You can't really. It's 93. Whoever 93 is for the Chargers.
Let's look him up.
That's just blatant. Like, I mean, that deserves a penalty, right? That deserves a suspension, right?
A suspension. Yes. Get out of the game for the whole year. I don't want.
There's no reason for that. Like, there's no reason for that whatsoever. Did he get ejected? I don't know
I don't know the background, but we'll figure it out. And we'll talk about it next week.
This makes me sick, like watching. And then shout out to Bradley Bozeman, who
came in
got cut from here and went to the Chargers and stood up for his quarterback like you're supposed to do. But this ain't nothing new. We've seen this from the Saints before, previously, in other regimes or whatnot. But that's just something we had to touch on that because we're just like, that's not.
His name is Nathan Shepard. Nathan Shepard, number 93. He was born on October 9th, 1993. He is 6'4", 315 pounds. He runs a 5.09 40. He went to Fort Hays State. He was drafted in 2018, 3rd round, 72 selection. He is a PFF grade 2024 of a 47.1. Last year, he was a 47.5. The year before that, he was a 68.9. He has a fro and he has a big beard.
Is this the wanted sign?
This is this man. Yeah, you did this to yourself, Nathan.
Yeah. I mean, everybody looking at you now. Everybody, you wanted the attention.
You wanted to make the play, huh? You should have just made the play, that boy. You should have got that sooner, that boy. Over there doing the alligator
roll.
Who was it that twisted Burns' ankle a couple years ago? Was it Zach Wilson?
Oh yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. It was a quarterback. Yeah, I think it was.
It was after a turnover, I think, right?
He was laying on the ground. He just reached out for it. It was either him or was it Washington? I want to say it was like a Washington quarterback.
I want to say
I think it
it
was.
was. I think it was
Yeah.
Zach. It was either
I think it was
Zach
Zach
Wilson or
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. That's who it was. Mac Jones. Yeah.
Yep.
Shout out to Damo Smith.
Yeah, Damo Smith, Kevin Liu,
Leonard,
they all remember. Yeah, it was Mac Jones. Mac Jones is backing up in.
Do you remember?
I think he's in Jacksonville right now. So he's in Jacksonville right now. So, real quick before we get to our thoughts on Panther Saints, because I think we're at the point of the season where I don't know if we're really giving predictions at this point. We're just kind of like,
how bad's it going to be?
Yeah, well, this is what we hope to see on Sunday. Before we get to that, though, a word from our friends at Cherry Bundy. It's a natural product. Natural ingredients, no added sugar. If you don't know, it's tart cherry juice. It's the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. It's a natural anti-inflammatory with incredible benefits, reduces soreness, increased recovery, contains naturally occurring melatonin to help improve sleep. It's used by nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. Every NFL team uses this stuff. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions use this, and every team playing in Europe or Brazil this season had Cherry Bundy with them. Every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007 swears by this stuff. You can go get it on Amazon, cherrybundy.com, and at retailers nationwide. It's right here, Cherry Bundy. It's a 6-pack. It comes in either concentrated formula or in juice. You can get it at Publix, Kroger. You can order it, pack 7 on Amazon. It's at cherrybundy.com as well. So definitely checking them out. Panthers Saints, 1:00 p.m. Sunday on Fox. It's the first time we've had a 1:00 game. It feels like in a month. It feels like all of our games have been 4:00 games the past 3 or 4 weeks, and it feels like we never play well at 4:00 in the first place. I believe I want to say the line is 8.5 last time I checked it for the Saints, but again, this was a Saints team to beat us by like 37 the first time we saw him, and Derek Carr has been hurt pretty much since then. I believe he's going to be back Sunday, so we got some reinforcements back. In terms of like Jadeveon Clowney and Josie Jewell played on Sunday, and they had been missing multiple games. Do you think Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, do they play on Sunday? And if they play, is it tied to whoever the quarterback is? Because I feel like Thielen probably could have went, but they just held him. And it sounded like Deontay was saying he could go, and they held him. And I don't know if that's for trade purposes or whatever they're doing, because according to Dave Canales, he's referring all those questions to them, which makes me think that they are taking phone calls on all these players. And they just haven't hit on what they want yet. But if Bryce starts again on Sunday, will he have his full complement of skill position players with him, or will we see the same thing this past week with Leggett, Coker, and the other kid? I can't remember the other kid's name. Mingo was out there, I think. Maybe.
Oh, you're talking about Moore.
I don't know
83.
why they traded for Deontay Johnson in the first place if they were not going to keep him around.
That's my point. Yeah.
And I understand probably some of this has changed just because of how the season's going and how it looks like you might need a new quarterback, and that's going to be a whole nother process. And Deontay may or may not, go into Dan's office and say, hey, I want to go somewhere where I can contend. That's very possible. But if I'm Dan Morgan, if I'm Brant Tillis, if I'm Dave Canales, if I'm any of those guys, I want to sit down and say, what will it take to get you to stay here? And we can see what we can do, because you traded away Dante Jackson, who was your number 2 corner. He was a veteran. He's played a lot in this league. To get Deontay here, you created a massive hole at corner opposite J.C. Horn to make that trade. And now if you trade Deontay, you're creating another massive hole. You can't keep going backwards. You have to keep pieces here. And it goes back to the Chuba Hubbard conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. You can have 2 really good running backs on the same team. That is okay. Like, there's no rule against that in the NFL. And if you want to take steps toward being a contender, you have to have dudes. You don't have dudes at receiver or cornerback or wherever. You're just going to play this never-ending game of catch-up.
I think Coker's a dude, first of all.
I like
Yes.
Coker.
And I think Xavier gets a dude. I think we have 2 dudes for like in those 2 young guys, right? Thielen's a dude. Deontay Johnson's a dude.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have to get guys that want to be here, because
That's
you got to
kicker.
because you have to build a culture, a winning culture. And part of a winning culture is guys want to be in that building. When I played for the Carolina Panthers, yeah, during down seasons, it's like, oh man, gotta go to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, it's been tough sledding, but I gotta go out there and earn my paycheck, right? I gotta go out there and show why I still belong on this roster, win or loss. Okay. And you do it in a way that once you're in the locker room, once you're out there on the practice field, once you show up on game day, you want to be there, right? And you want to be around the guys. You want to be around the coaching staff. Yeah, you might have arguments and question coaching, or you might question other guys' effort here and there. But for the most part, we wanted to be there. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to go anywhere else. Like with 2-14 season, I didn't want to go nowhere else. I wanted to be a Carolina Panther.
That's the trick. Figuring out the players that feel that way right now. Because
Yeah,
I haven't seen a Panther team that dejected walking into the tunnel in a long time. They had that video of Dave Canales turning around and giving that to the players coming in, and they just look spent. Like, I don't think that they're still fighting. Like, sometimes you can tell on the screen if a team is just not fighting anymore. And it felt like games 1 and 2. It felt like they didn't have that oomph in them. I haven't detected that at all in these games. It just feels like they get to a point in the game where they feel like they're outgunned.
I even like the chippiness that J.C. Horn had at the end of the game. He felt some type of way about,
he was in
Broncos
Broncos
trying to stack them points.
Well, JC probably knows Sean Payton since he was a kid because his dad played for the Saints. So like they know each other. Like, so it wasn't like him walking up on a random guy. Like, he was walking up on Uncle Sean. Man.
As a team, you should feel some type of way about another team trying to run up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna let you know, when it comes to the pro level, everything's free game.
That's what it was.
We gonna play this game till it's end. And like, if whatever coach would have called, we gonna run it and we gonna try to score. So at this level, you got to stop it.
You just reminded me. I completely forgot it. That trick play the Broncos did in the fourth quarter. It was like the quarterback got it, threw it to the wide receiver. The wide receiver not only throws it, but throws it across the field to the open wide receiver. And they all get up laughing and high fiving and stuff. And I'm like, that was a Sean Payton call.
You should feel some type of way if you're a player, but you got to also know it comes with the territory, right? Yeah. If you ain't stopping nobody, you bound to drizzle.
And they did.
That's exactly how Sean Payton treated the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. He basically called the game like, "Hey, this is going to be a game where we can try some things."
And they did. And did you hear his comments after the game? Like, he was asked about, how did the offense perform, whatever. He straight up was like, "Look, this wasn't a good offensive team. We knew that coming into the game. So we'll play against teams that are better offensively than this one was." And I was just like,
that man's still petty. That man's still petty about being a Saints coach.
Yeah, he's still mad. He's still big mad.
He's treating us like he in the NFC South.
Because at first I thought it was like AI generated or something. Because you know how that is nowadays, where people are just putting whatever out here and you got to kind of double check to make sure they said it. Nah, he was at the podium. Yeah, he said it. He was like, "Look, this is not a good offensive team. Like, we knew that coming into this. Like, we could try some stuff on them." And that's what happened. So, I mean, if he's out here saying that kind of stuff, you got to think that, well, Dave and company, they know this too. So it's like, back to this Panthers Saints thing, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Can we stop the Saints from scoring 30? Do you feasibly feel like, wow, that's amazing, that's where we are? Do you feel like we can stop them from scoring 30?
The only thing that can stop the Saints from scoring 30 is the Saints.
That's a t-shirt.
I'm not trying to be like this. I'm not trying to be Sean Payton here, but like, at this point, you are what you are. Like, we talked about earlier in the year, that big, part of improving is usually from game 1 to game 2. Well, all right, you had a couple of moments there, but you really kind of even maybe regressed ever since. And a lot of that's due to injury. And I want to say this too, because Des brought this up about ripping things down to the studs. I would even consider like guys that have been a part of this for a really long time. And I'm talking Shaq Thompson, Taylor Moton, Ian Thomas, those types of guys.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for him, but it may not be a bad idea. And this can be another discussion, but to move on from those guys too, to give them an opportunity to go and contend, because they are getting older. They're not old football players, but they're getting older, and you want to give them a chance to win. But it also allows more guys to come in that haven't been through all of this dreadfulness over the last 5 or 6 years. And I think just getting new bodies in there that haven't been a part of this, they may have heard it from the outside, but they haven't went through this. They haven't experienced this. Getting more players with a winning pedigree, even if they were backup somewhere else, like Dane Jackson is a perfect example. He was a backup for most part in Buffalo, but he started some games, and he was a part of a really good Buffalo team for the last few years. Getting guys like that is probably better suited for this team moving forward than, keeping guys like Shaq and Ian around as good as they've been, or maybe I should say Shaq and Timo, but you get the point there. But anyways, back to the Saints, I think it's just you just gotta pray that it's going to be close in the fourth quarter. And I don't care who's in a quarterback. My guess is it's probably going to be Bryce again. I mean, when you have your hand in a splint and you were in a car wreck, I don't know how quickly you can come back from those things. Maybe
Dave's like, "Are you ready? Can you go, Andy?"
No one probably thinks about with it is it's a lot of a touch thing too. It's not so much
arm strength. It's all about the feel of the hand. It's like swinging a golf club, man.
Right.
Look, if you get too handsy, and you get too handsy, or you got your hands too lax, the ball gonna go all over the place.
And Andy goes under center too, so it's like taking that snap, repeatedly, that with a thumb, I didn't think about that. Yeah, Bryce is probably going to play, and we probably find out. I imagine by Wednesday that he's going to be the starter, if not later today. But again, so Wednesday we'll know who's going to be the starter going in. But again, it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this episode. There is nothing that I've seen that suggests to me that all of a sudden Bryce is going to be a different football player, a different professional football player than what we've seen so far. I know he was different in college. I know he was different in high school. The situations were different. He had more weeks 1 and 2 at his disposal this year than he did the entire year last year in terms of the passing game. He didn't have, a Deontay Johnson. He didn't have the tight end Sanders. He didn't have Chuba, which we know what he is now. He didn't have this offensive line in front of him. He didn't have any of this stuff. He had DJ Chark and he had Adam Thielen, and that was pretty much it for most of the year. And he looked almost worse. And now we've seen him again. He looked better than he did weeks 1 and 2. I'll give him that. He didn't do something crazy, but he didn't really do anything that stood out either. And for me to get to the point where I'm like changing my mind on Bryce Young and okay, I'm willing to see where this goes. I need some kind of, he don't have to be a unicorn, but I need some kind of wow, something just ooh, that was good. Or ooh, I see why you got picked number 1 overall. Something, just anything, just give me something. And I'm seeing more of his flaws than anything else. And I'm trying to be real careful with this because again, Bryce Young is a good kid. He's a good kid. I'm not saying he's a bad kid off the field or I don't like his personality or any of that stuff. I love all of it. All that's fine. But I don't know if it equates to professional wins in the NFL yet. I just don't know. And Dave Canales is having to play bad cop here, which is something he clearly does not like doing. So he's having to do that in terms of making sure the media and the public know this is not my guy. I told you guys weeks ago, I'm willing to ride with Andy for the rest of the season. And the only reason why I've got to go back to this guy and literally had to backtrack in the same week last week because he was adamant, Andy's our guy. It took a car accident for them to have to be like, Bryce is our guy. So that to me is just telling that we talked about that opening drive when they got the turnover. Yes, it was good, but in hindsight, it was 50 yards. They only had to go half the field, and it took them 12 plays to do it. So, and if you really sit here and kind of chop up what they're doing, it's all short. It's all short stuff. And unless they unleash Chuba, right now I'm just looking forward to see if Jonathan Brooks plays because Canales said something that was kind of alarming where he got asked a question about Brooks, and he basically was like, there's a chance he might not play this season, depending on if he's not ready. And what is this, Schuyler, some kind of window he's got to play after he came off of IR, 21 days or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's coming up. My mind's been all over the place, but I think it's probably coming up. But yeah, if he doesn't get activated by the end of that window, then he's out for the year. So that's tough.
And it just goes with the flow of the season too, right? Why are we putting him out there now? We have Chuba, we have Mount Sanders, and they are capable of doing the job. Let's switch pace right quick.
Okay.
But I don't want to end. I know this is a Bleav in Panthers podcast, but we need to end this on a positive, like, football mindset.
Do you believe?
There we go. I love that. Okay. This player, can you guess him? Guess this player.
Jonathan Stewart.
He's a quarterback. He was 27 for 41, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he beat a top team this past week
In
the
the
AFC.
NFL.
in the NFL,
Oh,
AFC.
I know who it is. I know who it is.
Who?
Jameis
Jameis
Winston.
Winston. Mr. Crowder.
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir.
Now, listen. This man is a national treasure. He might be a world treasure. We
I've
must
never had a
protect
problem with
this man
Jameis
at
Winston.
all costs. We got to protect. He is becoming the face of the NFL, but not just the NFL, sports in general, as far as what belief actually looks like and what it sounds like. Unapologetically.
Mhm.
Okay. A guy that's just himself, right? He got clowned for his earlier years in the league, coming out of college, for who he was and how he carried himself. But one thing that Jameis did not do is switch up.
Then James.
He continued to be
He is
himself,
authentic.
and he continued to grow. He continued to grow and just be himself. Like young athletes, young guys, young leaders, young quarterbacks should actually sit back and take note of what Jameis Winston is doing, what he's accomplished, what he's able to achieve. He's still, I mean, that's an elite. That's elite numbers that I just put out.
He may act or say some crazy things, but the dude
It all-
believes in himself, and
and it
everyone
comes
else
from
believes
here.
in him too.
He reminds
and-
me. He reminds me of Cam Newton, personality wise. Like
Personality wise, just being able to just say what's on his mind and not have to apologize for it.
and
Because
plus,
you know it comes from a place that's like, hey, I believe. And if you don't believe, shame on you.
It's
We
genuine.
don't regardless.
Do
He's
you
going to be
believe?
great. He's going to be great for the Fox NFL Sunday Countdown crew.
Ah,
Whenever he's
yeah.
done,
when he finally is,
you
yeah,
know
I
he's
can
gonna
definitely see
have
that.
you wait for him.
He said, you know what it is. Y'all can do it for me.
Yeah, eating them dubs. Seriously, the way he's not as outlandish of a dresser as Cam or anything like that. But I noticed it even in college at Florida State. He's one of those dudes that you want to follow. Like he gets you hype. I heard his pregame speech on the field talking to the offense, and I was ready to play football. It's like,
Yeah.
let's go. Like, I believe in you.
Names
Like,
on our
let's do it.
jerseys and names on our helmets. Oh wait, we don't have no decal.
It's like, yeah, we don't, bro. But I'm following you. I'm going through a wall.
I'm going. I'm going with you.
Going.
And the Browns ended up beating the Baltimore Ravens. So I mean,
Ravens.
like any given Sunday, and that's
Anything all that matters. If that guy shows up on Sunday, that Jameis Winston guy that believes in himself, that interview he had with that lady before the game, like unapologetically, the Lord got this. So we're gonna be all right.
The villain
Like,
trucker
I
says
love it. I love it. We going to church. It's Sunday. So if y'all ain't here for this service,
he does have a
y'all
preacher
might as
vibe
well-
to him.
y'all might as well just skip Sunday and just watch football on Monday, which is Monday Night Football.
Villain trucker says Jameis equals Kanye, the Alabama version. Hard not to cheer for Jameis and the Browns. That's an interesting situation because we was dumping on the Browns just a couple of weeks ago, and now with Jameis in
they
there,
switched up and they changed
up.
narratives.
yep. So we'll see how they do because they scored over 30 points. They look great. You ran off the stats, so we'll see what Cleveland does.
Hey, I'm gonna go off and say this: if Jameis keep that up, the Baltimore Chiefs, Buffalo, all them got trouble.
I ain't gonna put the Chiefs in there yet because
Because the Browns defense is solid.
they got
That's
skill
solid.
position players. Yeah, I mean, like that was the only problem was at quarterback. That's why they went chasing after Deshaun Watson. So,
Yeah.
And then of course we end this on the Chiefs are still undefeated note. They beat the Raiders like 27-20. They're 7-0 or whatever it is. Pat Mahomes still ain't playing. They don't even know who he's throwing the ball to. Like really, he don't.
Travis
even
Kelce had a touchdown for the first time this year.
Oh, hey, it took him 9 weeks, but see, they're undefeated. Travis Kelce just got his first touchdown 8 weeks into the season. So
They're not
we
even
might
trying.
we might just be able to plan to see who's going to lose to Kansas City in the Super Bowl, which we did predict probably correctly back in August. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Shout out to our sponsors at Bet Online. cherrybundy.com. Make sure you go check those out as well. We'll have a quick word here from Melon Brand in just a bit. But for Schuyler Callihan and Jonathan Stewart, this is Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav in Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. The audio will be available on the Bleav Podcast Network here shortly. Video is already available on the Spackle Road Sports Radio YouTube channel. Just search for it there. We'll have some more. I think we'll have a Bleav in Panthers extra on Friday. I can't remember who it was I was supposed to have come on my show, but it's usually a Panther content creator or a beat writer or somebody.
Oh, yeah.
More
By the way, y'all won't be seeing me the next few weeks. I already told everybody, but I just wanted to let everyone that watches us know why I'm not going to be here. So, for baby girl coming within the next 6 to 7 days. So, yeah, Stu and Des will be holding this stuff down for me for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, shout out to Papa Callihan.
Yeah, congratulations.
Dad gang, girl dad.
Get as much sleep. I know it's crazy to say it in the busy part of your season right now, but get as much sleep as you can because
drink a lot of water, man.
Drink a lot of water.
Hydrate.
Yeah,
I slept until 8:15 today for the first time in a very long time, and boy, I feel great.
Yeah,
make sure too, especially right before you get to the due date, make sure you get Ms. Callihan whatever her favorite meal that she wants to.
I have to today. Today's our anniversary, so
it's
a crazy week.
Celebrating all over the place. Yeah,
man, get off the phone, man. You got business to take care of.
She's working right now.
No one is left though. They'll be on the way to dinner, and like somebody's gonna get fired or traded or something. And he's gonna have to like.
We already had that today with West Virginia, so
yeah. So it's coming. But so shout out to Schuyler and Mrs. Callihan on the anniversary today. The baby on the way next week. Big things going on with him. Me and Stu will hold it down while he's out for a couple of weeks. But shout out to everybody to stop through today with comments and reshares and everything else. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode here in Bleav in Panthers. Keep pounding. Leave. Oh, you know what? We never talked about your hats, too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We completely
this melon hat. Love this hat.
We're an hour and 7 minutes in, but
it's waterproof.
You
know, if you're out there on a boat or at a pool or washing dishes and you accidentally drop your hat into the water,
that baby ain't gonna sink.
No, it ain't gonna sink because. You know, it floats and it's water repellent. But mostly when you are outside coaching a football game, you know, for your youth football team or high school, middle school football, whatever you're doing right now, you can wear this hat and you can sweat and it won't ruin your hat. You know how you get them hats?
Get those salt lines.
Yeah. You don't get none of that with this hat right here, man. This is high performance, man.
So
shout out to Melon.
Yeah, you can go to Melon, a new sponsor for Bleav. Go to melon.com. It's spelled MELIN.com. MELIN.com. Put it to the test yourself. It's the world's most durable hat, and I promise we'll read it much, much earlier next week. My hat's not here. Like I got a notification on my phone that it's going to be here on the 25th, and that's tomorrow.
Yeah, man. So. Look, Desmond. And they make hats in all shapes and sizes because Desmond's got a large melon on him.